Hello, my name is Clay Hepler. I run a multi seven figure profit land flipping business. I also help fund people's deals, help fund people's land flips and development. And I am a premier scaling coach for how to actually scale this business. And this is my roadmap for how to go from a solo hustler to a strategic CEO. We're going to focus specifically on stage one, which is the hustler. And this is all underneath my Land Architect OS system in the 4P framework. So we're going to focus on hustler today. So this is where I find 99% of land investors are, right? They take the education, they learn about this amazing blue ocean of land investing. Ends up what happens is, man, they can't get consistent deal flow because they get boilerplate education and everyone's situation is really different. I just got off a call the other day of one of my clients who is a manager making really good money a day, Alice's Clinic. And this guy has 3 hours a day to build this business. He wants to scale it. He wants to make multiple six figures. And he came to me and said, "Hey, Clay, I need help. I need to figure out how do I go from hustling to focusing on the most important outcomes?" Because we as CEOs, we get paid based on our ability to allocate our time, our capital, and our people. If you're in stage one as a hustler, man, you aren't allocating anything. You're having inconsistent results. This is probably the majority of the people that are listening to this video. And I know it's the majority of people. I've already worked with over 15 people to go from hustler to operator and some hustler to architect. And it really is about solving a couple of core constraints. And this video is going to help you do that. You might have a VA, right? This is normally the stack of the organizational stack of being a hustler. So you might have a lead manager, you might have a data manager, you might have a VA, you might have a marketing channel. Maybe you're doing multiple marketing channels, but everything is incredibly inconsistent and it's barely tracked, right? Most people come to me and it's like, dude, you don't have any visibility. You don't even know what's going on in your business. You just know you have pain, right? And a lot of times the core emotion at this stage is deep pain. The key metrics here is you're doing maybe 1 to 3 deals a month. You're 20 to 30, 20 to 60K a month. Everything runs through you. You have inconsistent deals. There's no sales rep. There's no dispo team. There's no clear processes. You're trying to hustle harder, but that doesn't get you to scaling. The number one constraint I always see is not enough leads, right? You don't know how to hire the right person in the right job. You have no tracking. You have no delegation. You have no SOPs. Hiring feels incredibly overwhelming and you have no time to think strategically, which causes you to feel that pain that I was talking about earlier, right? There's no reinvesting back into marketing because you don't really know how to allocate things properly. Now, of course, you might send out mailers or send texts or calls or whatever, but it's just never really efficient, right? The way I always like to approach this is, use the hiring ladder, hire TC or EA or someone in an admin-based fulfillment position. You build out a basic KPI dashboard, you master one marketing channel, and you're able to start documenting your sales and dispo process. And then you have that support from the admin person that I was talking about, right? That is the move, honestly, to get out of this position. So many people, I work with so many people, and this is the core problem. But you can't really solve it a lot of times using the boilerplate, land education, right? Because a lot of times they're solving the knowledge gap and they're not solving the consistency gap, right? And consistency happens when you have data, when you have processes, and when you have people. So this is where people fall down. They don't have the right consistent pipeline. They don't have the good processes. They don't have strong people, and they don't profit, man. The 4P framework works at each one of these stages. The hustler, the operator, and the architect. And so we're going to go through this in more depth right now. So the hustler, right? This is what I see, man. So many people, this is where they're at. They got 5 to 25 leads per week, 2 to 8 offers per week, 1 to 3 deals per week. And they're inconsistent, man. They are stressing about 2 months, 3 months from now. They're not tracking anything. They don't know about cash conversion cycle. And all this stuff is not just like, I'm going to take something, I'm going to learn from a podcast or something like that. And that will allow me to effectively implement. It becomes incredibly difficult to implement all this stuff because it's confusing. There's so many different things that you need to. How do I know the right person to hire at the right time? How do I know the right KPIs to track? Over what period of time am I tracking my KPIs? What marketing channel should I go with? All these questions are what the hustler struggles with. and you have to make them. This is where you know you're a hustler because everything runs through you. All questions runs through you. All decisions run through you. And as a CEO, as a general rule, as you get more leverage, as you go to operator and architect, decisions will naturally run through you, but you'll also start to delegate lower value decisions. What I mean by that is, as an architect, I might say, hey, I want to achieve this outcome. That's the decision that I make. But there are like multiple subcategories of decisions, which is like, what should I do on a day-to-day basis? If I'm an acquisition manager, should I call this person or should I not? You can think about those macro decisions on like, we're setting this direction, the vision of the company, which is what a CEO should do, but also the micro decisions. And you're a hustler when everything is there, all the micro and all the macro decisions, all the huge decisions and the small decisions. It gets very, very difficult. You cannot see the forest from the trees. It's like you're walking. You might feel this, the pain of walking and the overwhelm of walking. You have no idea what the heck's going on. Hustling harder at this stage is not the solution, right? You want to start closing. You want to start closing more deals per month. You want to reinvest that money. You want to hire an admin, a VA, a TC to help you start documenting what works and having that KPI dashboard to understand what the heck is going on in your business. And this is where most people fall down, right? They don't have a consistent KPI dashboard, right? But also a consistent understanding, like what I talk about in the 4P framework, the profit that reinvest, it doesn't bleed. So I was talking to a couple of clients the other day and they're not allocating, they're not paying themselves any money. And so they're scaling an unsustainable business. And so what we think is cool, the gross profit doesn't really matter that much. What matters is the net profit. And what you really need at this point is really a community or roadmap, right? So most people get what they think is the community out of a boilerplate $5,000, $7,500 course. I take the courses, I get it. But you need that implementation. That's what really was the difference for me. For me, it was some higher level coaches. And I met my Ground Game podcast co-host, Justin Pichet. The guy has been in the business for about a year and a half longer than me, and he just knew so much more. So I met a guy, and he was just very giving, right? But I also paid coaches, man. I paid a lot of coaches to help me get to that next level, because the reality is when I knew that if I can get a higher ROAS of investing in myself, because I knew that I would do the work, it became much easier. But you need all this. You need the consistent marketing channel. You need the script. You need the basic a consistent system for sourcing, offering, and closing. That's the marketing, right? KPI dashboards and a budget and allocation, and then the implementation roadmap, right? So the first thing I would recommend you do is you start to track. You got to have visibility. You start figuring out, how do I get people into this process? I'm going to teach you an amazing framework that I learned that I walk all my clients through. It pay me a lot of money. I'm going to give it to you for free. And then Dispo, you're not able to find the right brokers. And so your deals are taking longer to sell. And then you have no idea what the heck's going on. You have no idea about finance, right? You don't have the consistent leads, right? So the constraints, as we talked about earlier at this part of the process, is that not enough leads, no SOPs, no tracking, hiring feels overwhelming, no time to think strategically, no reinvesting back in marketing. So earlier I was talking about macro and micro decisions. Well, how do you know what decision to make when you're just having to make everything? The shorthand of that is this. You do what I call like time audit, right? So time audit finds the hidden hours in your schedule that drive profit. I found across the board that most land investors waste 60 to 70% of their work time on low value tasks. That's why when my clients come in, I tell them, look, we got to do time on it. We got to figure it out. And I follow up. I actually just emailed one of my clients earlier today and I said, where's this time on it, guys? We need to complete this time on it. So that's why we start every client out with that. So this tracker helps you identify time leaks, busy work versus business building, audit your workflow to focus on high return on investment activities, reclaim 5 to 10 hours per week by removing distractions, and build a habit of thinking like an owner, not an employee. An owner allocates their time. An employee allows time to pass them by. By you focusing on the time audit here, it's going to completely change how you view your own time. Here's one thing that happened with my client, this manager of the dialysis clinic. He had 3 hours per day to offer on deals. And so what we did is we custom built a lead management process that's custom to his business because we had this visibility. Now, he could have listened to a podcast and heard, this is what you should do for a lead management process. It's not bespoke to him. but he has a different thing. He's making a lot of money from being a manager. And so we were able to literally build him a process with visibility and data. And that's the amazing part of the time audit. So if I haven't already convinced you, get a time audit. You can click the link down below and you'll be able to see, hey, this is where I can get the time audit. So this will teach you, and we'll go into this later, to start to use the hiring ladder. This is again ruthlessly ripped from Dan Martell, but we go admin, fulfillment, TC scrubbers, research, marketing, sales, leadership. This is the same process I do with all my clients, but we focus on who are the people that we need to bring into the organization in order to buy back the owner's time. In the hustler stage, man, you're doing everything. You're thinking about everything. You're operating everything. And the faster we get you out of that, the faster you scale. Now, there's always a capital constraint. And that's the one thing I always work on. Like, how do we balance capital constraints with the hiring ladder? And that's the special sauce, right? But we can put the right people in the right seats and create variable compensation plans, figure out how do we actually build this out such that these people are successful and they're using the hiring ladder properly. And the reality is, we're in this to make money. I'm not in this business to not make money. I'm completely transparent about it. I'm making this video because I think it's going to lead me to opportunities working with people, right? And I think we need to be transparent about that. And so when I speak with my clients, the reality is hiring ladder. We got to figure out, how do we help you make more money? So if we can think about this on a continuum, if you can go from $5 an hour task to $50 an hour task in 3 months, think about the compounding effect of that in your business. Most people don't think that way. They don't track their time. They don't think about the hiring level. They don't focus on solving constraints. And that's where people fall down. That's why everyone's posting on Facebook today and saying, land business isn't working. It's because you're not working on the right stuff. When you go through the time audit, when you start thinking about the hiring ladder, another stage, or another reason why I see people fall down at this stage, is they're doing everything, man. They're doing direct mail, they're doing PPC, they're doing RVMs, they're doing texting, they're doing cold calling. Pick one, go to a million. Do it well. Do it really, really well. I just had a podcast, or was on with Ajay Sharma. He asked me to come and speak at his Lane Closers Academy. And I was talking about, hey, how did we lock up 7 figures of deals this month, right? And the reality is, like, we focus on one channel, and we've gotten really good at it. We've obviously layered other channels onto it, but we just don't send out mail and call it a day. We really focus on, how do we make sure that when we are getting feedback from our people every single week, that we continue to improve. So the better way is to focus on one channel. The passive way is direct mail. The active way is texting or RVM or cold calling, or passive, I would say, is also PPC, because you have inbound leads. It's basically inbound versus outbound. So how do you solve this constraint, right? I want to give you guys value by the end of this video. So you solve the marketing constraint of this part of your business by starting to track your results: text, direct mail, calls, RVMs. You solve the sales constraint by finding a reliable script and showing up on time and working on closing. You solve the underwriting constraint by finding and following a reliable and consistent process to underwrite deals. This is what I was talking about in a different video, is about funding, right? And so when I started in this business, I worked with the same funder for 1.5 years. Now, people are telling me, Clay, you're giving up so much equity, whatever, because, the equity split, 60-40, 50-50 split, whatever it is. But I learned so much, and it also allowed me to have consistent, reliable, predictable understanding of my profit per deal. At the beginning, you're in this hustler stage, and you're like, I'm trying to raise money for my to reduce my cost of capital. I'm trying to hire these people. I'm trying to conduct a time audit. I'm trying to manage my CRM. I'm trying to build out SOPs. I'm doing all this stuff. And what ends up happening is you build a lot of bridge that are half finished. And so I knew this early on, because I had scaled a house wholesaling and flipping company. As it relates to underwriting, I just had, hey, we are working with this one funder. They helped us underwrite better. They helped us become better at due diligence, but it also allowed us to plug in every single time we did a quick Excel formula. And we knew that at this point, this person would fund this deal, and we went and offered based on that. And so I would recommend finding that person, finding that funder to help you do that. TC, at this point, you can hire a fractional TC that they help you with each deal. I don't necessarily recommend that, because the land's pretty complicated. Or you can hire it like an EA or admin person to do it. People have had success with both. I've just actually never used a transaction coordinator, 405 to 100 per deal. So to be honest with you, I'm a little over my skis there. I don't really know that much about that. And then Dispo is using the CQT method to find and talk with the best brokers. I talked about that a lot in my social media. It's a method that we pioneered internally, and it's an incredibly great. It's a really great way to find reliable brokers, and then start to track your basic metrics. Use online QuickBooks to do this. You could track your profit and expenses and review it every month. I don't get it. People don't look at their profit. So here are the role and responsibilities at this level that you need, right? You need a lead manager, right, who can track your gross and qualified leads. You execute call reviews with them. You book calls directly on your calendar as the primary acquisition manager, the CEO. They keep CRM and Google Sheet updated. They follow up persistently. This is a huge unlock. It's an appointment setter for those that are not super experienced with lead managers or acquisition managers. This is really the what you need at this stage, right? In order to buy back some of your time, this is the org chart, right? Of course, you can have variations depending on how quickly you want to scale. There's a ton of different stuff. And I was talking about that dialysis client earlier. We had to build out his org chart differently. And so there is really no one size fits all. Just like with education, if you buy a course, there needs to be some sort of implementation, because the reason why people get inconsistent results is because they have a playbook that is not built on that type of consistency. And obviously, you want your general VA, executive assistant, or admin assistant. Doesn't necessarily have to be executive assistant at this stage. Bookkeeper that can help you with that, although you can do it by yourself. I always recommend bookkeepers. And then a data manager and pricer, which is the same as the VA. So the big key, the big unlock here, I'm going to leave you with this, is you don't need you don't need 10 people. You need consistent deals and time to think. Understand all the processes. People want to scale out in this stage. Sometimes I have clients that have come in and they have a phantom team of people that don't know how to execute. They don't have the right SOPs, and they need to master the scripts and the processes, right? And they got to track the right KPIs, right? And so at this point, this is the big key of this stage one. And here's a little extra a bonus here. You can find VAs, EAs on Upwork, referral from Land Groups, bookkeepers, QuickBooks Pro Advisor networks. There's a bunch of different bookkeepers, and then lead managers. You can do the same thing on my jobs, Upwork, etc. Now, if you got benefit from this, please rate, review, and subscribe. I'm going to keep putting this type of content out on YouTube. I think it's going to be really, really helpful. There's a dearth of education with how do you actually scale this business. There's a bunch of people on how do you get involved, but how do you actually scale this thing, man? Like, how do you actually make money? How do you actually build something that's worth anything, right? In having that consistency. So please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. It really helps me. This is an operating system that mirrors my business's operating system that has allowed me to go from $30,000 in the bank to over $3 million profit in just 3 years, right? And so in this Land Architect OS, you'll have my 4P framework, how to build a strong pipeline, how to put the right processes together, how to have the right people, and how to profit correctly. Now, there's going to be a lot of links in there to show you the exact software and everything that I'm using. And there will be some other links down below for if you want to work directly with me. You can book a link for a free 30-minute strategy call to see where you're at, to see if we can help scale your business from inconsistent, unreliable 6 figures to more consistent, reliable business.